Hey, everybody, and happy Thursday. I'm Marissa, and this is Art of Heart. And good things happen on Thursday, and we get to have a really inspiring and growth oriented conversation today with my guest, Shannon. And I'm going to do a little interlude as to who Shannon is because she's a very, very important person in my life. The Art of Heart, or The Art of My Heart, which is my book that's coming out very soon, which talks about my journey and how I got here. Actually, the very first chapter is about Shannon, and Shannon and I have been friends since high school. And I was in high school, she was in college, and we met when we worked at the Limited. And um, it's a really fun, lifelong friendship that has had ebbs and flows. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear her story today. And I'm also excited for you to hear how she impacted my heart. And so Shannon was the first person who taught me how to be a friend. And when you're young, friendship looks very different. It's like, what are you wearing and what parties are you going to and what does gossip look like? And I think, there's a couple things. Shannon's a little bit older than I am, so she was in college. And also, um, she just really took the time to care for me in a way that nobody had ever done before. And so she taught me how to be a good friend, and she taught me how to show up for people, like, probably when things aren't fun, and be able to have hard conversations. And so she showed up for me in ways throughout my life that I will be forever grateful for. And so it's really cool that we have reconnected, and you get to hear her story today. So if you're ever wondering what it looks like to have a friend who shows you how to be a friend, that was Shannon for me. So without further ado, Shannon, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, that's really sweet, Marissa. And you were my wedding too. So that's just,
Oh,
another little tidbit, which we'll talk about. So yeah, my name's Shannon. I live in the Kansas City area. I love the Kansas City area. Lived here about 10 years. I work remotely for an insurance company, and I'm a mom. I'm recently divorced. I like to craft. What else? Anything else?
you like music?
I do like music, yes. And I've also enjoyed reconnecting with you and glad our paths crossed again.
It's fun in friendship. Grown up friendship is so different, right? Like, life gets
Very
busy and there's all
different.
these competing priorities. And we had dinner actually last week, and we were talking about kind of like the ebb and flow of life. And we were very close when we were younger, and then she moved and life got busy, and then we reconnected, and then there was more distance, but there was never like a break in the friendship. It was
Uh-uh.
just life. And I think that that's more common than we realize in all kinds of relationships, that life kind of has its own ebb and flows. And one of the things that we talked about is we both just felt like the other one was busy, right?
Yep.
And we
Just,
both
yeah.
committed that we would do a better job, yeah, of like continuing to push and show up in the relationship even when life is busy. So as we get into Shannon's hearts and her transformation and kind of where she came from, the first story is, I don't think that uncommon. And I say that because it's become like, I don't know if it's just because it's confirmation bias. Like, since you and I started talking about this a few weeks ago, I feel like I've had a bunch of people in my life kind of share a very similar sentiment of losing themselves along the way. And so tell us about story one, which is partner in life, dot, 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 question mark.
Yes, and I agree with your statement because I was just listening to your podcast from today, and it's like, wow, this is very similar to my story. And yeah, I said partner in life, dot, 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 question mark, because I think that was really what helped with my, as you say, my aha moment of realizing that that's not what I had. And so 4 years ago, there was a traumatic experience in my marriage, and it really caused me to look inward. And, at the time I chose to stay married, but I said to myself and my husband at the time that, things really need to change. Are we in a rut? Do we just don't know how to communicate? But we can fix it, right? Marriage is hard. They say marriage is hard. You work through your issues, that type of thing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I guess I really took that to heart because then over the next 3 years that we were still married, we're recently divorced this year, there were just other things that happened that had me continue to question, is this really what I want for the rest of my life. Did not feel like I had a partner and in my life, and I don't know how many more years I have left, right? So, and I
Yeah.
just, it seemed insurmountable that we had been together for over 20 years. And at that time, I feel you've established how you communicate and how, like, how can you change over 20 years of bad habits if that's what it was. And so um, we separated a little over a year ago and then got divorced this year.
I think when we're young, we think about relationships and marriage and partners and all that in a very different way. Like we're just like ready to start our lives, and whether
Mhm.
that's like career or the house or the two kids and the cars and the dogs and all that stuff. But as I get older, I realize my want and need for true partnership is more important than like you know, does the person look like I think that, I want them to
Yeah.
look? Or do they have that job? Or do they
Mhm.
whatever it is, like, I really, the value of a partner and what a partner looks like is really important. When you think about when you were young, right, what you were looking for is different. What do you think that you thought partnership should look like in your marriage that it wasn't?
I honestly don't know if I thought of the word partner back when I was young. I don't know. It's not that it shouldn't have been thought about. You're man and wife, you become parents. You should certainly share certain values and get along, able to communicate, all of that stuff. But I don't know if partnership was how I would or what I was looking for per se. I was in love with this person. I couldn't wait to start my life with
Yeah.
them, and off you go, off to the races. So, and
It's
to your
true.
point, it's certainly getting older, but it's also, I was married young in my early 20s, and we moved quite a bit. We had two kids, and so you just kind of go through life, and I don't always reflect on things, really
Mhm.
inwardly. And it wasn't, like I said, until the few years ago that I started doing that more. Could it be because my life has slowed down? My kids are young adults now. There's just more time that I have to
Yeah.
myself that I can think about things like that. But yeah, I just knew once I did talk to him about some of these things, but I just knew that once I really started saying what I needed in the relationship, it wasn't who we weren't going to be able to stay together.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, we don't take time to slow down and think about
Mhm.
how we feel and what we want and what we like and what we don't like. And, for me, I didn't until June of this year. I just knew that I was marching towards what I thought was going to bring me joy, and
Mhm.
everything else in the middle was just like a toxic wasteland. And when I stopped to sit down and like map how I felt and look inward, like what
Mhm.
actually brought me joy, what did I really want from life, what was I missing out on, and at the rapid march to what I thought was going to bring me joy. And I think that happens so often in relationships of all kinds. And for you, there was a moment, and this happens with a lot of people. Like there's some type of event, whether it's a near death experience, it's some type of catastrophic happening. There is like a moment, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this doesn't work for me anymore. And the only place to find these answers is on the inside.
Mhm. And honestly, there had been similar moments in the past, but for what you're saying is I didn't really know or take the time to look inward then. And it's like you reconcile or fix whatever the situation is, just move
Mhm.
forward. Next thing you know, 5 years has passed or whatever. Time flies, and yeah, you look up and you're like, okay, this has been over 20 years. And
Yeah.
how am I almost 50?
Right. And what would it look like if you stayed in the same situation for another 20 years?
Yeah, that looked very, very desolate to me. And I can't change other people, right? I can only control myself. And so, yeah, that's when we just started to have those hard conversations as, husband and wife, and decided to split ways.
So, what did your heart look like when you realized that it was a desolate situation? Can you describe it for us?
I would say definitely grayish in color and very dim, not like a bold gray or anything like that, but very dim and subdued, and just kind of, I mean, still heart shaped, but just getting like less and less to almost where you can't see anything. And I mean, I had, like I said, I met this person. I actually met him in high school. We didn't get married that quickly, but married early 20s. And um, I didn't know who I was outside of
Yeah.
being his wife and outside of being a mom. I mean, yes, I was a friend and that, but I just didn't really know who I was. So I felt very small, scared, too, of like what, not scared to be on my own and scared for the next step, but just that's been my life for 20, almost 25 years. And so, um, how do I figure out who Shannon is? And I didn't really, know where to start at that time.
So, as we kind of go into story 2, it's interesting that you say, like, "I didn't know who Shannon was." Like, I think and I talk about this quite a lot, but I created a person that I thought everybody wanted me to be, and I was really good at morphing into that person. And there was all kinds of things, when I got divorced in 2017, there was all kinds of things that I thought I didn't like, that I had actually been, creating so that someone else was comfortable.
Hmm.
And, there's also a lot of things from when I was a kid that, like, my parents told me about myself that were absolutely not true, right? Like, my dad was really hard on me, and I talk about that a lot, in
Hmm.
my work, but one of the things he said is, like, "You're not athletic, and you can't go do outdoorsy things because 'cause you're not built for that." Well, I love the outdoors.
Yeah,
I
same
mean, like, I
too.
love it. I love it, right? Like, I one of my favorite things to do is to, hike and go sit on a rock and just sit there, and no phone and no music, and just look around at all the incredible things. Well, I had missed out on that for 40 something years because someone told me somewhere along the line that I wasn't built for that. And so, you're almost 50 and you're at this waypoint of figuring out who is Shannon and what does she like. So what does this look like over the past few months or year?
Well, it's interesting because, for the first couple of months, I just enjoyed less intensity in the home and, just doing what I wanted and that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, I belonged to this yoga studio at the time, and one of their teachers had recently become a licensed counselor, and she was trying to build her clientele up. So she hosted a workshop. I can't remember, 6 or 8 weeks, a weekly workshop where it was women only, where we talked about some things and like our goals and our vision and different things. She helped to guide us through that. And then we also did some yoga. And I put myself out there and joined that. And it was a group of 6 other women. And that first session, we're sitting around on the yoga studio floor, and um, she just wants us to introduce ourselves and say what we hope to get out of this time together. I don't know if I was last or almost the last person. And as soon as I opened my mouth, I just started crying. I couldn't even say my name without crying. And that was, um, it felt good. I felt obviously safe that I could do that there, but it also added to that scariness and and just, how do I even figure out who I am? And so, like I said, that workshop was really helpful. I've obviously started counseling myself outside of that and everything. But as I did that, and I know you like to talk about, is it a good, hard, or aha like waypoint for you? And I I honestly like didn't know what to pick because I'm like, is it good because I'm heading in the right direction? But it's been really hard. And it still is.
Yeah.
I'm still in it. And healing, as you've talked about too, is not a straight path. And there's, steps forward, steps back, falls back, jumps forward, whatever it might be. And it's not to say there's not, good times, but sometimes the hard stuff just really weighs down. And that's where um, I felt I've been. So it's interesting. I thought we broke up or, split our marriage because we just couldn't communicate well, didn't speak the same language, whatever you want to call it. But as I've talked about my relationship through counseling and group coaching and things like that, it's it's been hard because I learned that a lot of things that happened in my marriage are not quote unquote normal. And
Yep.
I don't know, I never really thought about, I didn't necessarily have the healthiest role models, in marriage in my life. And definitely had hard times in my childhood, as a lot of people have, and we won't get into that. That certainly shape how you go into relationships like this. And and again, as I said, marriages are hard, and so you just think, oh, this is hard. But when I've heard that that's not normal, that's not. I mean, I knew my relationship wasn't healthy at the time, but I didn't understand the impact that it did to me over the years.
Mhm.
And I have a lot to unlearn now, and
Yeah.
this is one of those steps, honestly, of putting myself out there and being vulnerable, because I've shrunk myself over the years to, you know, stay so small, keep things, in a good place, try not to rock the boat, and on the surface, like you talk about, look happy.
Yeah.
But so that's been hard to unpack, of just how, wow, like reliving your relationship with this new knowledge and this new lens. It's sad.
What I hear you saying too is that it eroded who you are.
Yes.
Like,
Hmm.
um, so like the Shannon that I know,
Hmm.
right, is bright and vibrant and will break out into song and dance in a moment's notice. Like we were just doing prep for the podcast and I was like, Jack baby, and like she
One,
jumped right
two,
in, like,
three, four.
yeah. Like that's who you are, right? Like you're this
Hmm.
bright, vibrant person, and when you're like, yeah, during that time, like you shrunk, you were smaller.
Hmm.
Um, surprised me because I would never have guessed that. Even like interacting with you at the different times we have in the time you were married, I would never have thought that she has eroded
Hmm.
the essence of who you are and become small and tried to be, quiet and to shrink. That that surprised me. And I think as you're learning who you are, because I do think we change, but I think those
Yes.
basis of things we're still
Hmm.
like in that moment, like we're still the same. We're still just like kids. We just are older with a bigger budget. Um,
Hmm.
but really, but then
Hmm.
how do you, um, in that moment when you cried in the yoga studio because you didn't know how to describe who you were or who you are, um, to now fast forward, you're finding not only yourself, but what is your new normal? And how does new normal look different and allow for you to become this better, brighter version of yourself? Does that make sense?
Yes, and a new normal for me is, I definitely reconnecting with a lot of my friends, and even putting myself out there with newer relationships. I had met one lady through my master's program that I'm in, and we always got along. And I'd gotten her phone number at one time, and I reached out to her. It's like, hey, you want to go get a drink? Like, trying to. I do strongly believe in community, needing a
Mhm.
community of support. And I did not seek that out in my marriage. And was shamed, I was ashamed. And I just didn't talk about a lot of stuff that was going on, that now, as I, share stories, like you said, people are surprised.
Mhm.
And I just, I, I've learned that that's how you get close to people, is being vulnerable. And it sounds stupid to say, it's like, duh, Shannon, but it's just, but by, being vulnerable and opening yourself up, and, that looks different with all different kinds of people. And, but that's really what my new normal is. I'm much more active in going out and doing things than I was. That was a struggle. And like I said, just really reconnecting with friends and focusing on myself. Like I bought a kayak, like the things I always like to do. Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go do these things, and some of them are
Yeah.
fails, and some of them are wins. But yeah, and it is nice that I don't have to. Maybe I never had to explain myself to other people, but I felt like I did. But now
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to explain myself to other people.
Right. Like, when you're
Mhm.
like, "Duh, Shannon," like, you should know that. Like, I can't tell you how many times in the past, like, 6 months I've been like, "I understand the
Right,
concept of something."
logically.
Like, right, logically, like, my brain is like, "I understand vulnerability," right? Or,
Mhm.
"I understand joy, I understand milestones." Like, I understand these things, right? But in reality, they never connected into here, and so,
Right.
like, so when I was getting, when I launched the podcast, I had this, like, insanely, m like, crazy moment, and I'm like, "What am I doing? I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna, number 1, I'm gonna air my stuff, right? Number 2, I'm gonna ask people to talk about, like, the hardest and pivotal points of their life, right?
Mhm.
And we're gonna, like, what am I doing?" And then when I was ready to publish the book, I basically exposed to the world that I had been living with burnout and I had healed myself, and that we as humans are not okay and we're not talking about it. And like, that's all well and good as I was like writing it. And then the day it was like ready to go into the world, I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to tell everybody I'm not okay. What is wrong? Right. And
Yes.
so, but like, the only way I really think that we have a better human experience is by having these really hard conversations
Mhm.
out loud to other people, being really vulnerable, because what happens is those things that were happening in your marriage, you didn't know weren't normal.
Mhm.
It wasn't until you started talking about them and you're like, "Wait a second, maybe this is more than poor communication and misalignment.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
there's something else happening."
Yeah, and the other thing that's been really helpful for me is that, like, I definitely got very good at pushing down, emotions. And, through my group that I'm a part of, we talk about that a lot. And you need to go through your emotions. You need to name your emotion. And I actually have this emotion wheel now. So it's like, okay, anger, but what exactly is it within anger?
Yeah.
And let yourself feel it and reflect on it. And again, that's hard. And but if you just, push it down, it's just going to continue. You're just going to ruminate and continue to have the issues. So that's been very helpful with me too, even when I'm, besides the community of support, but when I'm, I'm by myself, just like, okay, what are you feeling right now, Shannon? And then trying to
Yeah.
understand the reasons behind that.
Yeah, and not just keep moving. And like, so I also like am very much now working on what is the actual emotion, not like,
Hmm.
because like, I'm quick to just get mad, like,
Yeah,
I'll
so
just be
I'm
like,
pissed.
just
Well, like,
agitated.
yeah,
Right,
right.
right, or like, I'm annoyed, like, annoyed is a constant state, like, everything's a but what's really wrong? Am I, and this happened to me yesterday, I was really tired yesterday, I was really annoyed, and, like, everything, like, was just a problem, and I'm like, "Wait a second, what's wrong?" Like, what is actually wrong? And I literally stopped at my desk. I was staring at an Excel screen and had been staring for a few minutes. And I'm not sure if you know this, but Excel doesn't move itself. It's like you have to do something with it. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I'm tired." Okay. And then I went through like basic needs, like, what have I eaten today? And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I haven't eaten in like 6 hours and I'm hungry and I haven't had enough water." And like, there was all these things, but if I had not stopped to check in, like, am I just really annoyed or am I not meeting my basic needs?
Mhm. I mean, yeah,
You
that's
know?
valid, because if you're not meeting your basic needs, other things are going to affect you differently. And I had a similar day yesterday where it was like something on one call, like I took into the next and the next, and I just said, I'm sorry, I've had a couple calls. I need to go for a walk after that. I need to like clear my
Yeah.
head. And so yeah, just being able to see that, in yourself. And I don't meditate. I have in the past, but I probably should try and start that again, because I know that's really helpful too, so you be more consciously aware of what you're feeling and why. One thing I wanted to mention to you with your Thanksgiving episode, you were talking about the different words you use, is I really liked that episode too, because you talked a lot about that. Don't just say I'm thankful or I'm grateful for you, but
Yeah.
really expand upon that and explain it. And I did some of that day, and to your
Oh,
point, trying
good.
to use that going forward.
Yeah, because like when we just talked about naming emotions, right? And like
Mhm.
what is the actual emotion? And then like how does it feel? And if you don't name it, like to your point, you carried it into several other meetings, which then just continue to compound.
Mhm.
And you going for a walk is what I call tethering, right? Like
Yep.
it took me a really long time to figure out there are things I have to do to take care of myself, and figure out what my tethers are. And it's something that I teach. And I really wish that it would be normalized for you to have a day and for you to be able to say to your team, I really need to go for a walk.
Mhm.
I'll be back, because the truth is you're going to be more productive
Yep.
and be able to solve better problems and be a better teammate and a better leader and a better friend, all these things, if you just stopped, were feeling some kind of way, addressed whatever that feeling was, and then did something to slow things down and come back to yourself. We don't do that. And we don't allow other people to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I hope as a leader, 'cause I do lead a small team, that because of my own reflection and things I've gone through, especially the last couple years, is I do recognize needing that space for me, and I hope that I am giving it to my
Mhm.
team as I believe I am. But even some days it's like I've had to just move meetings because I can
Yeah.
work, but I can't be on the phone today. Like I just need to work through some things. And then obviously sometimes you just need a mental health day too. Those come up,
Yeah.
and it's usually unplanned, but you just
Yeah.
have to take care of yourself in that way. And I'm lucky that my boss does allow for that space. And like I said, I hope I allow that for my team too.
It's special when we can take the lessons that we learn in our personal life and
Mhm.
become better leaders and better teammates, and just better humans at work. Like, we
Mhm.
sometimes forget, like, we all have jobs. Like, I don't know a lot of people who have the luxury of not working. Hopefully, that will be me one day. But, we have these jobs, right? Like, we have things we've committed to do, and when we're not showing up as the best version of ourselves, it's hard. But when we take the lessons that we learned, like, you're going through this huge personal transformation, and you
Mhm.
being able to show up to work however you're showing up today, but also to be like, I hope my team feels this way. And
Mhm.
like being able to share those lessons with them, it's so impactful.
You share enough that it paints the picture, but just to give yourself that grace, give them grace. Um, I think that's important.
Giving yourself grace is sometimes easier said than done. Um, Especially when we
I say
are
it
the
out
way we
loud to
are.
myself. I was like, Shannon, give yourself grace. This is ridiculous. Because I think you talked about that in your podcast that came out today. Is we're really good at helping other people and helping other people through things and that type of stuff, but then we don't do that for ourselves. So,
Yeah. And we don't allow for that growth. And
mhm.
growth is hard, and
Mhm.
you have to tend to yourself. As you described your second heart, it painted a visual for me that was really interesting because I hadn't thought about life that way. So tell us about your heart as you've kind of come into your own. And
Yeah, I valued the opportunity to think about it in that way because I love flowers, and I just thought of it like we were talking about that, you're healing and you take the two steps forward and however many steps back, whatever it is. And what comes to mind with my heart now is it's getting brighter, you know, like blooming, if you will, into brighter
Mhm.
colors, not that dim gray. And I see the, you know, wildflowers, and I'm watering the wildflowers, and some of them are perky and back to life, and some are, you know, dying and need some more attention. Some maybe were forgotten about and they're dead. And so I just felt that that painted a picture to what I'm going through now. And I'm, we talk about this a lot in group of like, well, when are you healed? Like, what's the definition of heal? And everybody needs to come up with that definition, or what is healed for themselves. Is it when you hear that person's name, it doesn't affect you anymore? Is it you accomplish a certain goal? Is it, you know, whatever it might be? And so I'm okay that all my flowers aren't all standing up and perky,
Yeah.
but I'll continue to water them and myself, and you know, hoping to get that those colors brighter.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a healed point. I think that I thought I was broken for a long time. I thought there was all these things wrong with me. And then when I realized that I'm not broken, that was a big revelation for me. But that doesn't mean I don't have things to work on. And I love the
Hmm.
analogy of the flowers and like tending to the flowers, because just like you have to tend to a garden, you
Hmm.
have to tend to yourself.
Hmm.
And that's what you're learning. And it was actually such a perfect representation of, I really think, the journey that you've been on and the journey that you're continuing to pour into yourself.
I agree. Um, Hopefully, more flowers will sprout over the next
Or
couple of
flowers.
years.
So, before we say goodbye, what is one piece of advice you'd like to leave listeners with?
We don't always, you know, it took me a long time to like pick my head up and look at the bigger picture, because you know, you're just pushing through life, and and I don't know if this is easier said than done, but when you do have that feeling in your gut of like things aren't right or I'm not happy, explore it. And whether it be by yourself or with others, you know, through therapy, whatever it might be, but really explore it. And um, don't just push it to the side, because it just does such that, holding that type of stuff in affects you physically, affects you mentally. And it's, you know, it's just amazing what we're learning about the human body in that way. But um, yeah, just look for that, who's someone you can talk, someone you can find a safe space with, and, you know, explore it, and don't hold it in.
Don't hold it in. Pick your head up and look at the bigger picture, and we are the bigger picture. And um, I hope that whoever's listening to this podcast today, when you get done and there's that blank space, think about yourself. Are you happy? Do you have joy? Are there things in your life that maybe don't look quite right and your intuition has been telling you so?
Hmm.
um, Look at those and think about what it could look like if your wildflower started to grow again. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your story, and see you guys next week.